want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm Kate Powers, the president of Marine Conservation League. On behalf of the League, I'd like to welcome you to the fourth and final workshop of MCL's four-part series, Ranching in the Park, Not by Accident. Tonight's workshop is titled Hopes and Dreams, and we have 6 wonderful presenters this evening who will discuss the future of ranching in the seashore. MCL has a long history of supporting ranching in the pastoral zone of Point Reyes National Seashore, going back to the days of our founders and continuing through the time of the seashore's formation. MCL board directors David Lewis and Sally Gale conceived, planned, and coordinated the workshops with the intention of providing information to our membership and to the public in anticipation of the release of the Seashore's comprehensive ranch management plan and its corresponding environmental assessment. But the workshops have turned out to be more than that. They have been an opportunity for the public, members of MCL from East Marin and West Marin, and Marin's ranching community to learn more from each other, to mingle, to exchange points of view and perspectives of this place that we all love. Before we begin, I'd just like to do some thank yous. I'd like to thank our hosts, David and Sally. Could we have a big round of applause for them putting these together? It's been a wonderful program. To Director Vicki Nichols for organizing sign-ins and refreshments. And then I'd like to just take a minute to thank all of our speakers who have made presentations throughout the 4 workshops, to our participating ranchers, both on our panel tonight and also on our panel in workshop 2, and to our participating ranchers on the panel discussions that we will have after the panel discussion tonight. I'd also like to thank MCL's board directors who have facilitated the discussions of the breakout groups and others who have chipped in other ways. A couple of other thank yous. Thank you to our hosts, Nicasio School, Mickey McIntyre, who's the office manager, and Dawn Armstrong, who's the interim principal. I'd also like to thank Chris Gallagher, who was our host at the Bay Model for workshops 1 and 3. I'd also like to thank our donors. We'd like to extend a big thank you to the generous donations who have provided us a delicious bounty, which you'll enjoy after the workshop tonight. A special thanks to Cowgirl Creamery, Nicasio Cheese Company, and Point Blue Cheese Company, who not only quickly volunteered to help, but provided us cheeses for all of our workshops. Mary Stubbs of Stubbs Vineyards generously donated her award-winning organic Chardonnay, but you had to come to the Bay Model on the east side of Marin to enjoy that. We have also enjoyed local jam from the Wild Pear Company. Cookies were provided this evening from Preferred Sonoma Caterers, and we've had delicious apples at each of our 4 workshops from Sally and Mike and Chileno Valley Ranch. Thank you all. So my last thank you is to all of you who have attended. This was a unique series, and we sincerely appreciate your participation. So to begin workshop 4, David is our host.
Well, wow. Welcome to our 4th Tuesday. I don't think, for many of us, including Sally, when we started this, that we could get this far and stay with it this well. And so really kudos to all of you that have been there. You've learned a lot. You've helped us learn a lot. And so just congratulations on being here tonight. I'm going to do a little bit of walk down memory lane, both to help us all remember what we've already gone over, and I'll do it briefly. And also for those that couldn't make the earlier sessions, it's a way to help you know what was covered. And also to make the plug that, again, these are being filmed by CMCM Television, and MCL, working with them, will get all 4 sessions pulled together and available going forward. So if you didn't make the earlier sessions, here's just a little primer, and then for all of us, we'll be able to enjoy and go back and reference this going forward. So our first one was the history, and we had Laura Watt is here tonight, but we had Paul Sadin, And we had John Hart, who I think maybe is coming as well. And they just did a great job of helping us learn about the concept of a seashore as it came to be in the national park across the country, and how this seashore came to be part of that concept of creating recreational access next to highly populated areas, and navigating and working through preservation of really critical environments and ecosystems, and in this case, balancing that with agricultural production, and balancing that with recreation. And so the early concepts of recreation really evolved, and when you finally get into the park that's formed, it really, those historians helped us think about when it was formed and when it was signed. And it took both the enabling legislation and 2 more amendments to finally pull it together. So that's something else to really think about. It took almost 10 years to finally get through the definition of what the Point Reyes National Seashore was about. And so it's worth going back and revisiting what those folks offered us about the struggle, the negotiations, and the eventual agreement about what the seashore is, and what Point Reyes National Seashore provides us. That includes agriculture and the cultural resources, in addition to preservation of really incredible ecology. And in fact, it was, I think, Dewey Livingston's here, and it was his work that led to the cultural resources being designated through the historical registry in 1998. So just all of that comes together through that history lesson. Session 2, we spent some time with Ted McIsaac. He didn't bring his little buddy there, but he definitely helped us think about what these ranchers are doing, and how they get together, and that it's a group effort, a family effort, and that it's just beautiful. I know that's a little dark, but it's just to look out across the grasslands, and I think it was him that really drove home the fact that, yeah, we're producing milk or we're producing beef, but at the core, a rancher on the seashore or through the rest of Marin is really growing grass and understands soils and grass. We also heard from Bob McClure, and we learned what a loafing barn does in terms of the place that you can feed your cattle, but also get them your milk herd, get them in and out of the rain during the winter to protect against water quality. So this was a newly built loafing barn for that purpose. We learned about no-till drilling and pasture management, and how you can seed and grow crops in a way that reduces the erosion from tilling and disking. And of course, we had a couple other experts that night. We had Roger Ingram come and talk to us about the ins and outs of cattle grazing, and just what are the factors that go into that, what are the costs. I don't think any of us will look at a dollar bill the same way. And really, he tried to help spell out the direct costs, the overhead, and the profit on an annual basis for a cow-calf operation, a beef operation. And we also had that night, I should back up, Bees Butler was here, who's a dairy economist, and really helped us think about the fact that to be creative and to be successful, you always have to be thinking about what that next niche is, and what the next product might be. And he mentioned some different kinds of milk that I had never heard of before, but he did talk to us about the trajectory of organic from conventional and now into other types of milk. And then, of course, we broke into small groups and had some great discussion, and we're going to do that again tonight. So that's a primer for you. The back half of tonight, we're going to break into these small groups, give you a chance to talk with each other further about hopes and dreams. And then our third session really kicked off wonderfully by Professor Joe Mueller from College of Marin. Gave us a really good understanding of the geological setting of the Point Reyes National Seashore, the fact that this is some geology that's from way south. It's moving north about 2.5 inches every year. And if you can tell by the different colors, those represent different geology and different soils. And as a function of that, along with currents and the seasons of the Mediterranean climate, you get an incredible diversity of species on the seashore. It's one of, it's in the top 10 for national parks in terms of the number of diverse species. So that's a primer for his wonderful talk and setting of the natural history and the ecology of the seashore. We did really well having him do that. We are fortunate to have Frank Dean come and just give us context for how a park, and particularly this seashore, staffs and tackles the different issues that it's and the mandates that it's charged with. And he spoke to us about the staff that works on water quality, the staff that works directly with the ranchers, staff that works on endangered species, and really helped us understand the professionalization of a seashore staff over a course of about 30, 40 years. And he gave us a little bit about the context, and then we've heard some from the ranchers. You might hear a little tonight, just how is it different and how is it similar, ranching in and out of the park in terms of the leases, the requirements on the park relative to off the park, and all of the environmental laws, and in addition, other kinds of insurance requirements and such. We spent a little time with Lori Tall, who was a regional board, the San Francisco Regional Water Quality Control Board staff member, who's in charge of the dairy water quality regulations across all of Marin, and as well as pitching in on all the grazing regulations throughout Marin. And she just gave us the timeline and the different requirements, and I just have this as a reminder that for dairies, there's nutrient management plans and other kinds of waste management plans that they need to be working on and completing and having on farm. And all that's aimed at not only just complying with the Clean Water Act, for example, but really protecting water quality. That's why those laws were put in place in the first place, is to reduce sediment delivery to our waters and increase salmon habitat, improve the ability to be able to swim and maybe even harvest shellfish. So those laws, this is the ways in which they're implemented in California, and in particular on the seashore. So she walked us through that. She walked us through a partnership and funding sources that are available to help. And then we were really lucky to have Nancy Scolari, who's here tonight as well, the executive director for the Marin Resource Conservation District. And she went a step further to explain how that on-farm conservation happens and happens out on the ranches on the seashore. And a point she made early in her talk that I think needs to be talked a little more about tonight, but I like how you said that, Nancy. The gate needs to be opened, and so it's a partnership where we open and we talk to each other and we learn from each other. And the rancher brings a world of knowledge about what might work on their ranch in the way of conservation practices. And practices like these, and so we talked about these things where we might fence a creek out and create a way in which cattle can be moved back and forth across into different pastures, and really the ways in which we might think about doing this, which is very formal, by the way. This number up top here comes out of a USDA manual, an engineering manual, so this practice is described down to very precise prescriptions. But the ways in which we might think about it as an engineer or a hydrologist needs to be really tempered and formed by what'll work and what the rancher understands will work. So that was a really important point. And then the other point was just that a lot of this work's been happening for about 20 years, maybe even longer, on ranches and farms, not only on the point, but throughout the county. That brings us to tonight. And I hope that was a good recap. I just wanted you to know that those were the first 3 sessions. And please, when we get those up and you were interested, feel free to contact MCL and we'll get you the links. I think we'll probably follow up after this with the links so that you can refresh yourself of what was covered. But tonight we want to talk about hopes and dreams. We want to be forward-looking. So if ranching on the park will continue and is going to continue, what are the aspirations and how can that be supported? So we're going to talk about that, and to help us start, we're going to bring up 6 panelists, a couple folks from each of 3 families, and we've just got a few set questions. We'll then work through those. We'll open up to you for questions, and then as we get into the second half of the session here, we'll break up, and we've got lots of other ranching families in the room from the seashore that we can have smaller discussions with. So before we do that, let me just see a show of hands. Who came from Mill Valley tonight? Okay. Who came from, help me out, Novato? Okay, quite a few. All right. What other ones am I missing? Anybody from Sausalito? All right. Well, great. So we went to you guys twice, so thank you for coming. That's fantastic. Who's from the Point? From the seashore? Okay. Did I miss anything? I mean, I don't mean to be San Rafael, go for it. San Rafael. Okay. Okay. I do this on purpose. I just want you to appreciate that we're from the whole community and we're here tonight. So let's take that opportunity and use it to learn from each other, okay? I think if anything else, and somebody said it really well to me tonight, is we can leave after the end of these having met each other, having built the start of relationships or strengthened old ones. Let's keep that going. So with that, let me start by asking, let's see, I don't know where Jolynn is. Jolynn McClellan, if you'd come up, and Jared Mendoza as well. Have them take their seats. And they're going to do a little self-introduction. I'd also like to ask, so Jackie Grassi and Joyce Arndt, if you all would come up. And then lastly, Bob McClure and Michelle McClure. And I've coached them as much to have a discussion with each other as with you. So I hope they enjoy hearing, I hope you all enjoy hearing each other's responses as much as I know everybody in the room is going to enjoy the discussion. So I just want to go through the table and give you a little time. Introduce yourself. Share, how long the family's been out on the point, how many generations, and maybe a little bit about, what is the operation. I don't know, we'll kind of start over here. And I do want to make one quick note. It says on your program, a couple members of the Evans family were going to be here. And true to ranching, things come up. So they're not here. And we were really lucky to be able to rally Michelle and Bob. So I'm going to let them go last so that they can kind of hear and listen. So go ahead. Jolynn, would you start for us?
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Jolynn McClelland. I am the great-granddaughter of J.V. Mendoza, who came here from the Azores in the early 1900s. He purchased the A and B ranches in 1919, where my grandfather went on to operate it, and my father, and now my brother who's sitting next to me. I married into another dairy family, the McClelland family. My husband Robert and I operate a farm up in the Valley Forge area, and in 2011 we had the opportunity to bring back to life the El Ranch operation. We milk 200 organic cows out there. And let's see, we were really excited to have the opportunity to, the El Ranch, the cows had been sold the year prior. The cows were conventional, and at that time, the conventional milk market was in really bad shape. So the family decided to sell. My grandfather had passed away. His partner in the operation, G.W. Lobaugh, had also passed away. None of the children wanted it. So this opportunity came along, and we were excited to jump on it. Robert and I have deep ties to the Point Reyes area, and we were really excited to bring back this dairy farm when so many shut down and never open again. We also provide 4 jobs in our community, and we're excited that they have families and we're keeping kids in the schools. So it was a really great opportunity for our family.
Great. Jared, go ahead.
My name is Jared Mendoza. B Ranch, as my sister Jolynn had said, there's not a whole lot much more that I can add as far as the history of our family goes, although the other side of our family actually comes from this town here. My great-grandfather came over here and raised a family in Nicasio. So we're born and bred true and true in this area, in Marin County agriculture. We started the B Ranch, went back into business in 2010 as an organic dairy. My father sold the cows in 2009 and we brought it back in 2010 and decided it would be the right choice to be organic. Right now, we milk about 250 mostly Holstein cattle, and I sell to Strauss Family Creamery. We've had it took a lot of time to make the decision on whether or not to continue farming when my dad was out there, but it just wasn't economically feasible, and unfortunately he had to let it go. But I made sure that, or I talked to him and said, hey, let's try this again. And actually, Jolene and I started out as partners out there, but we separated, but we still get along. So it was a good break. And no drama. And my wife, her family is also of agricultural heritage. She's from the Grassi family. And so now our daughter pretty much completed the point circle. I think she makes the connection. Everybody's now officially related. So anyway, and thank you.
I'm Jackie Grassi. My family reside on the M Ranch. Domenico Grassi Sr. Immigrated from Switzerland in 1891. My husband's grandfather, and then my husband's father, Domingo Grassi Jr., moved to the M Ranch in 1939. His father purchased it, I believe, in 1938. And myself, my daughter Joyce, I have another daughter. We have 3 grandchildren and a great-granddaughter. And we all live on the M Ranch. We have a beef operation. It's wonderful having your family to work with, knowing that you're producing, knowing you're producing the best quality food you can for people to consume. I'm sure Joyce at sometimes gets a little frustrated living so close to her mother and father, but it's all worth it. We get along fine. We're all in the same place, and we're doing the best job that we can.
Go ahead.
I'm Joyce Arndt. I'm her daughter. I'm the 4th generation. Closer. Okay, is that better? Too loud. I'm the 4th generation. My daughter is the 5th, and my granddaughter is the 6th generation. So we've been there for quite a few years. It does become difficult at times working with your family. We all go in our own house, and then we come back out and say, all right, we're good to go. It is good to work with your family and know that you're producing a great product. I would love to live there and have the rest of my family live there. There's not much else I can say, but it's a great place to live. Thank you.
I am Michelle McClure. I am the 5th generation to be in the dairy industry in Marin County. I live on my family's organic dairy. I'm not that familiar with our family history, so I'll let my dad talk about that. But I just graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in June, so I'm very recently back in the area, but obviously it was good enough to come back to, so yeah, let my dad talk about the history.
Well, excuse me. I see Dewey in the background here, so I'd hope I don't mess up too bad, Dewey. But I'm the 4th generation. Michelle's, as she said, the 5th generation. My great-grandfather immigrated from Ireland in 1896, I believe, somewhere around there, and worked for different dairies, and eventually bought the G Ranch, where Lunny's are today, and that was sold in, I think, 1919, somewhere around there. And at that time, my great-grandfather purchased the upper and lower Pierce Ranch. That's where the McClure's Beach comes from, is the McClure's were out there. And then in 1930, the I Ranch came for sale, and my grandfather, Jim, purchased that in 1930. So we've been at the I Ranch since 1930, as Michelle said, producing organic milk for Clover Stornetta Farms, and that's what we do.
So you've each hit upon the multi-family generational aspect of what you've experienced and where you come from. Can you just give us a little perspective on what it means to live a family legacy, the importance to you of that family legacy? And you can start, whomever wants to start, yeah.
I think one of the most important things about having family and the land that you've been on for generations is the hope that your following generations will have the opportunity to be there. It's a pride in ownership. It's knowing that you belong. Hopefully these ranches will still be there for those generations. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of persistence, but you have to love being in the ranching business because it's hard work. As anyone, I see some other people in here who are ranching or agriculture. You have to love it because I've seen at 11:30 at night, my husband and I in the barn pulling a calf, assisting in a birth, windy, cold, it's dark, and I have to laugh and I say, I wonder if this is a romantic part of ranching.
I think, like Jackie said, you have to love it, and part of that love comes from the legacy. Jared touched on it on our mom's side of the family. So our grandmother was a LaFranchi, great-grandma was a Dulcini. So we're descendants of Charles Martin, if any of you are familiar with that part of Marin County agricultural history. And I think it's pretty neat to say that for 6 generations, this family is still carrying on this dairy industry. And it becomes a part of you because, like everyone has said here, ever since you're little, you're out on the farm. You're working alongside dad and grandpa, learning the tricks of the trade. And it's just something that just gets instilled in you and the connection to the land and to the animals. So it's very, there's moments when it can definitely be hard, but then you sit and you remind yourself why. And one of my big whys is because I'm so proud to be carrying on this tradition, and hopefully my boys will carry it on as well.
Yes.
As far as a legacy, we took a trip to Ireland last year, and we found the grave of my great-great-grandfather in Northern Ireland, and that was really cool. It really brought home the legacy part of what we're carrying on here. It's gone on for like long time, generations for. She's, as I said, the 5th, so no pressure at all. But seriously, this is a real dilemma, and she's in a situation right now. Recent graduate, Cal Poly, graduate ag business and ag communications. She's poised with the question now, what do I do? What do I want to do in my life? It's a very, very important question that she's the only one that can answer that too.
And I think along those same lines, I think even people here tonight have been like, oh, well, are you going to take over the dairy? And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm 22 years old. I graduated a couple months ago. I have no idea what I want to do. Maybe I would go back to the family business, but there's a lot of open-ended questions that I have to answer still. So I don't know, it's kind of puts me in a tough position though because of all the family history that's out there and because of all the family history that everybody out there has. You don't want to be the end of the line, that's for sure.
what she highlighted on there, it's true. You don't. It's a sense of pride. You feel like if you're the last one to be active in it, that you not only you're letting yourself down, but you're letting down everybody that came before you. And that's I watched, like I had said, at the time when my dad sold out, we weren't really sure what we were going to do, and that was hard on him. It was tough to see him go through that, and that's something that I will always remember. And it's a sense of pride. You don't want to be that last person to let it go.
The pride theme, and maybe ask you just to talk about, as you get up in the morning and you go out onto the land and you go out with your animals, and then you think about the product that you're bringing to customers. Can you just kind of weave those three together in terms of what gives you satisfaction day to day and throughout the year?
I'm not quite sure
Yeah.
exactly the meaning of your question there.
So you all shared with me when we were getting ready for this a pride in the land and your animals and in the products you're bringing to the markets. And so I want to hear a little more about that.
Well, you know, every year there's new innovative ways to produce your product. You want to have the best possible product. You want it to be safe. You want it to be healthy. You want to be environmentally correct. And knowing that you're doing everything you possibly can to get that product, and that your family is willing to make some sacrifices to change your ways. Sometimes stick to the old ways. They're sometimes the best way. I think that's what keeps us tuned to the market, tuned to the consumer. Beef is going through a big change. It's going to what the consumer likes. A lot of nutritional data is out there as to what you should have, what you shouldn't have. And so we're always trying to improve. And when you finally think you've got your what do I want to call it, your program going, it's a sense of pride and of accomplishment that you're doing something right.
I think it's just kind of, it's like now selling to Albert, it's kind of cool to be able to go into the Palace or one of the local markets and see you're part of that team, you're part of that product that's in the store. I remember when I was young, we would go by, I'll never forget this, used to drive by Albert's ranch there, and my dad would say, "Oh, Albert, he's doing that organic thing. That's just crazy. That guy, that's just not going to work. It's not going to work." And well, now, 15 or 20 years later, I mean, it's, everybody's has pretty much shifted to that style of operating. Almost goes back the way they used to do it 100 years ago. We Portuguese are so smart. It took us 50 years to figure out we should have been doing what we were doing 100 years ago.
Bit from what Jackie was saying about the romantic nights of pulling calves and whatever. There's, as far as satisfaction, there is something really satisfying about all of us sitting up here. We can take care of a cow's problem. We can save her life, and that feels really good. If a veterinarian gets a call from any of us up here, they know they got a problem, because we can do the easy stuff. It's the hard stuff that they got a problem. But it's very satisfying and rewarding.
I think you're right, Mom. That is very satisfying when you pull a baby calf and he's out going, whoa, life, it's bright out here, and he's looking around. And then Mama goes over there and starts licking him, and then he goes, wow, I can see now. And you're like, there you go. That's what's the best part. Or even a lamb or anything else.
Kind of go back to the family history a little bit, just and hearing you be resourceful, but also maybe even a resource for each other. How and a son that maybe links families. So talk about the resources you provide to each other, the friendships even over time. I'm just curious. It's got to be, as you think about going back to when folks homesteaded and found those ranches, it's got to be lifelong, multi-generational relationships between the families.
One sort of business-like answer is that for all of us each of us staying in business helps the other one because we are sort of a mass. We also, within, say, the dairy industry, also help the rest of Marin and Sonoma County that we all stay in business because we all use the same veterinarians, supply companies, and all those things. And the more and more of us that go away, they might not be able to stay in business. So for that side of it, that's how we support each other and the other businesses that are able to stay open and operate. But speaking on a more personal level, where do we even begin? I mean, we've gotten to live next door. So growing up on the Bee Ranch, we lived next door to our cousins, the Nuneses, the entire time. I did babysitting for them. There's Christmases. I'd go out and babysit Kehoe kids for like 3 summers in a row. McClure's, our connection goes back a long, long way. My Dewey might have to help me on this, but my great-grandmother's mother, so my great-great-grandmother came, and that was her first job. She was the nanny for the McClure children. So, yeah, we've all been neighbors, and, I mean, Ernest Spletta, he and I are 4 days apart. We'd do Halloween trick-or-treating together. I'd give him rides sometimes in high school when he got his driving privileges taken away. I mean... I mean, it just goes, and then I had a really good friend in elementary school through high school, Jessica Murphy, and my grandma used to always say, you girls represent 4 generations of friendship. That's 4 generations of friendship right there. So it's a really, really special thing to grow up in that kind of environment when you're a kid, to have such a solid background and just this community of people that support you all along the way beyond just your own family.
It's like, too, maybe all the parents out there had kids around the same time, because Ashley Art and I are actually 3 days apart. The Kehoe kids and I are pretty close in age. I don't know, the Nuneses, we were all...
parties out there.
But yeah, so just to grow up with your neighbors that closely is something that I don't think a lot of people can say.
Jared, add to that. I think you've talked about how on the ranch there's family friends, multiple families on the same ranch.
I've had, I have a couple employees that were there. They worked, my grandpa and my dad were partners in the business when they had it, and these 2 employees started working for them, and they've been there for, at least probably 20 years, living and working out there, and now they work for me, and we get along really good. They've known me since I was a kid, and I've gotten to know them and their children. But I think just really quickly going back to that last question that you had, I think one way to kind of describe it is it's almost, I had a friend one time that had said that trying to get in with what he likes to call the point people is kind of a hard group to get into, and I thought about it. It's almost kind of, it's a little tribal. We feel kind of like it's like a tribe. We I don't know. It's like a big family,
To bouncing around, but yeah, back to the employee question, we have multiple examples on our family farm of people that have worked for my grandfather and my father for years. And, you know, of course, then us kids those were your playmates. We'd all play together, go to school together. And there again, you have that bond as with the other ranchers of living out on the point and all those wonderful memories. It's a very, very special relationship that I know my husband and I have the utmost respect for our employees and think of a lot of them as family. And it's really special because you get to know each other on such an intimate level, because when you go home, you live right next door to each other. So you get to see their lives unravel just like they see ours. You know, they've seen me pregnant to having my children, and just today, one of them watched the kids while Robert and I went to parent-teacher conferences. I mean, you just become so a part of each other's lives and so connected.
I know when we had dairy, let's see, we've been in the beef business since 1970, but when we did have a dairy and we had working men, you do, like Jolynn said, you form a bond with the families and their children. And even to this day, occasionally, one of the men will come back and visit, bring their family, see what they've done with their life, where they live, how many grandchildren they have. It's a wonderful thing that people keep in touch like that. You don't lose contact just because you're not in the business anymore.
Well, a little funny story on that. My youngest daughter, Alyssa, she's an Irish redhead, and Ava, one of our workers, he's been there for 24 years, I believe, still works for us, and Ava used to take care of Alyssa and speak Spanish, so Alyssa got to speak at a very, very young age fluent Spanish, and today she speaks fluent Spanish.
She's actually minoring in Spanish at Cal Poly, so,
Yeah, so it's
because
just
of that foundation.
that kind of bond, so it's kind of neat.
I heard a similar thing with your grandfather learning Portuguese from my great-great-grandmother too.
My grandfather had an offer to work for the Portuguese consulate in San Francisco because he was fluent in Portuguese because of the connection with the Mendozas and McClures. He spoke fluent, but he declined that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. It would have been a different story.
Well, so the story I heard too, to piggyback on that, apparently he was at the auction yard, and there was some Portuguese people that kind of wanted to not pay him as much, I guess, as what the animal was worth, and they're going back and forth with each other in Portuguese, like, oh, let's get this Irish guy, let's get this white guy, and he answers back in beautiful, perfect Portuguese, and their jaw dropped.
Yep.
Let's ask you all to look a little bit forward now, and Bob and Michelle, you started talking about maybe the conversations you're having. Michelle's just back from school, she's trying things out. Joyce, you talked about children and grandchildren that you hope are there. How as you all start to think about the next handoff, or for Jolynn and Jared, you just took it on. What's it look like for you going forward? What are your plans? What do you hope for the ranch and for the family going forward? Business and personal.
That's a lot to say. Well, my youngest daughter just is in her second year of Santa Rosa JC. She's still trying to figure out which direction she's going, what she wants to do. My middle daughter is a senior at Oregon State, so she's just got a few more months to figure out which direction she's going. That's a tough one. Every day we get phone calls. I don't know what I'm going to do, Mom. I want to come home. I'm like, stick it out, Jess. Just a few more months. Just a few more months. Let's get it through. Ashley is my oldest, and she seems to really like the animals. And she has a little girl Emma, who's 2.5, who absolutely adores going outside and feeding every morning with me. And if I don't take her, I get yelled at. She seems to really want to be with the animals and wants to take over at some point. As far as me, I'm not sure I'm ready to retire yet. I still got a few more years on me. I don't want to. I love what I do. I love taking care of the animals. I love producing a product. That's about all I can think of.
On that note, hopefully, if you're a good business person and you're allowed to operate at a profit so that you can maintain your livelihood, your family's livelihood, so that you can allow your great-grandchild to still stay on the land and live there. The profit margin every year goes down and down and down, but we're still there, we're still living there. Hopefully, that's what we can leave to our children. Richie and I can leave to our children is a livelihood so that this agricultural area, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone, will continue. If it's not there, like Jolynn said, all the different businesses that depend on us, they'll also be affected. So hopefully, our legacy will be able to leave them a wonderful pastoral zone that they can live on and that they can thrive on.
You plan to stay in the beef business, maybe cow-calf, and any thoughts about what that looks like going forward, or things you might innovate around? I'm just curious if you've had those conversations.
Well, the beef industry in the last few years has taken a few big hits, but we've managed to, and I'm sure a lot of other people too, managed to find a way to make a living at it, to produce, like I said, the consumer input now is a big thing. The beef industry has stepped up its product so that it will be consumer friendly, so that markets are opened up overseas. New and better technology. Yes, hopefully our industry will continue to improve and thrive and have something that will keep us viable.
I think every generation too, I remember in the Point Reyes Light years ago, it was about the Stewarts, and Joanne Stewart said, if I had ranched like my father did, I would go broke. If my daughter farms like I did, she will go broke. And that's exactly, you can't just be happy with what you did. You need to be, like Jackie was saying, innovative, look for new technologies. Don't be the first, but don't be the last either. Yeah.
And so I guess I'm in a little bit of a unique situation because I did just return to the area and I don't know what I want to do. I'm currently working for the Sonoma County Farm Bureau, so I'm still involved in agriculture, just not production agriculture per se. But my sister and I have always kind of dreamed of, I don't know, making cheese or butter or yogurt, something along those lines that, I don't know, maybe someday we'll do that. Maybe someday we'll switch to beef cows. It's pretty open-ended on what the future holds for me personally.
So my husband and I were in our 30s, so hopefully we have a lot of years left. You know, we still plan on milking cows into the future. We hope that the organic dairy business stays strong, but we have to be open all the time, willing to be innovative, because nothing is a forever thing. You know, right now it's really been beneficial to this area, but you know, you never know. That's the thing with agriculture, well, with life in general, you never really know. My children are only 9 and 5, so we have a while, but my husband and I, we've talked about it a little bit. Sometimes we sit back and think, wow, Here we restarted the El Ranch. We put that herd together from moving some cattle from our home dairy in Valley Forge, and then purchasing some other local cattle. The dairy in Valley Forge also was a dairy that had been closed down in 1995 that Robert brought back into business in 2005. By luck, we have great family that was able to give us these opportunities, but we definitely put in our own blood, sweat, and tears bringing these dairies back, and the equity. And I know Bob McClure's wife, Ruth, very well. We have loans through American Agri Credit and everything to get these businesses up and running again. So we've really built what we have from the ground up. So we look at each other and go, if these two boys don't want it, we're not going to work this hard just to have them turn around and sell it when we pass away and enjoy the benefits. And you put so much into your farm, so much. I said this in a talk a couple days ago. Yes, your family is number one, but really, when you're a farmer, that farm's number one. There's a lot of times there's not only financial sacrifices, but sacrifices to your family that you have to make because that farm is number one. So what we have talked about is if our boys, this is all very in the beginning stages, and we have a long year, few years till we have to worry about this. But we have talked about being open to if somebody wanted to buy in, or if we had an employee that really wanted to buy in, or on our home dairy, a niece or a nephew, we would love to see the dairy continue on, because really it's almost like a third child, and I wouldn't want to see it just diminish or be sold. I would love to see it continue on. So that's what we've talked about in our family.
I think it's just what I would like to see in the future for my children is just opportunity. Opportunity that if they want to take it on, that's one is 4 and one is 3. The 4-year-old thinks she's 24, but excuse me, not 4 and 3, 6 months. I don't know where 3 came from.
Sleepless nights.
Just opportunity. If they choose to take it on, great. If they don't, well, at least I tried to give them the opportunity to take it on. And if they choose not to, that's okay. But if it's either my daughter or my son that wants to try and do it, that's great. If not, then that's when, like Jolene says, you start looking at somebody else that might be really interested in wanting to take it over, because there's the farms in America are an endangered species.
Let's keep building on that. I just want to hear a little bit about when a ranch comprehensive management plan is out and it's approved, what would be in it that would help you partner with the staff at the seashore to be successful? Talked a little bit about that before, but just what are your hopes in a completed management plan so that you could work effectively with the park staff?
Well, I think it's we've been in the park for almost 50 years, and it really has worked very well for us together. And it's a matter of these planning groups and getting input from public and so forth, and you folks all listening to what we need. Some things are practical, some things we can, and some things we can't do. But working together with the park is extremely important, and that that we have, and we don't know everything. There's new technologies coming on, new practices, best management practices. We all have to, listen to what the best for the land is, and a good working relationship with the park. I look forward to that continuing in the future.
I think the ranch management plan will probably take care of a lot of the issues that we're faced with today. Hopefully, it'll take care of some of the more, shall we say, hot topics. We're always open to working relationship with the National Park Service. We've worked with them, like Bob said, for 50 years. We've always managed to get along. There are some things that we need so that we can still operate in the pastoral zone, and hopefully all these issues will be ironed out. That's what I'm looking for. Hopefully everything will be straightened out, and then we can go on bigger and better than ever. I shouldn't say bigger, I'm sorry, better than ever. We can't get any bigger, just better.
There were some times when you've shared with me a little bit just about day-to-day decision-making, that you've been with staff and it's like they can't and you can't, you both want to. And hopefully the plan will give you the blueprint to make those decisions.
Yeah, just some streamlining on projects would be really helpful, because there's times when you're trying to accomplish a project and the park staff will come in and they have their ideas and you have your ideas, and it just kind of, they don't quite mesh, or they do mesh, but they just take such a lengthy review process that by the time the review's done, it's like, oh, well, the project, that was 5 years ago, guys. We're not really on that project anymore. But I think that would be a really good benefit of this of the Ranch Comprehensive Management Plan, would be some streamlining of the process that it takes to try and get projects accomplished.
I think a big word is compromise. That needs to be in everything, because I think we all want the same thing. It's just how we go about getting it, and hopefully this plan will be a big compromise.
And I think to reiterate also, kind of what Bob was saying, we have a long history of a good working relationship. This will just help give us some guidelines on answers to what our best management practices are, and can help us collaborate with them better on anything that we want to do.
So let's spend maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, take some questions from you all, and then we'll take a break and we'll get into our smaller group discussions. So I got one here. Go ahead, please.
I'm not familiar with the ranch management plan in its current state, and I realize this may be a hot topic, but I was shocked to learn here a couple of weeks ago that the leases are only 5 to 7 years, and I don't know how you can plan or sleep at night with a term that short. So I would like to hear some discussion about that. Is that allowed?
So did everybody hear that? Just a little bit about the length of the leases, your thoughts, what works for you, what's going to make sense. And we can back up. It's probably worth backing up a little bit. If you weren't at the earlier sessions, the ranches were on reservations of use for 25 years at the time, at the start of the park. Then they've all been moved to some sort of special lease permit, and on this kind of 5-year cycle, some of them even shorter time frames, and for different reasons. And so, yeah, please, thoughts about a longer lease or lease structures that would work well for you going forward.
Well, the way it is now, if you have a 5-year lease, you got a good lease. Seriously. But we're hoping for longer-term leases, as Jolene was mentioning about bankers. My wife is a banker. They're not going to make loans on capital improvements or whatever unless your lease is going to be past what your amortization is on that project. So it's very important that we get long-term leases. Through this ranch management program or process, they're looking at perhaps 20-year leases, which is a lot more comforting.
I think to put it a little bit in perspective, because I've had some people from their perspective, wow, 5 years seems like a long time. I guess when you're looking at how long someone's house lease can be, maybe a year or two. But with farming, when you're working day to day, a lot of the things that you're doing and the planning, you're years out. You know, the cow that you breed today will have that calf in 9 months, and hopefully that calf, when she grows up, when she's 2 years old, to being a milking cow, will then be a really great addition to your herd. I mean, you're just thinking so far in advance that really 5 years is just a blip on the map. And so, you know, to really invest in structural improvements, I think to also give yourself and your employees that stability that, yes, we're going to be here, don't worry. That's why I think a longer lease works better in this situation, in an agricultural situation.
Well, and Roger Ingram, when he was here, the way he put it, I thought was great, where he says that the farm is profiting, the land is profiting, because you're turning around and you're taking that money and putting it back into things that can help improve the land. For example, there's RCD projects like maybe planting hedges along creeks to stop erosion or things like that, but those are cost share programs. Well, if I have a 5-year lease, why would I want to, take, that's not benefit, now the land's not benefiting, and so nothing's getting accomplished. The same problem just keeps reoccurring. So more stability allows for not only infrastructure as far as buildings go improvement, but land improvement as well.
Definitely, because we are all very, very pasture-based out in the National Seashore. You know, dairy, beef, organic, conventional. And Jared's absolutely right. The more stability long-term you have, the more of those improvements and time you can put in to just making those pastures better and better.
Well, some of the projects that are through cost sharing are supposedly maintained for the life of the project, or a minimum of 10 years. Well, if you've got a 5-year lease, up till now, they've been renewed. But if you've only got a 5-year lease and you've got a project that takes 20 years of watching, then what good is a 5-year lease or a yearly lease? You need to have the stability in order to do these things for improvement.
Other questions? I've got one here. Yeah.
I have attended to the previous sessions, and maybe this was covered then. And I'm originally from Wisconsin, which is farm country, and I love farms, and I understand what you are all saying about your love for the land and living on it and farming. And it isn't a quick thing in the best of circumstances, usually. So it's a lot of hard work, and you can make a living. But my question is, if the families love living on the land as much as you say they do, and I'm sure they do, and you do, why did you sell originally the farms with a leaseback arrangement that's not certain?
Well, I know in our family, when the Park Service decided they wanted to make a federal park out of the seashore, a national seashore, my father-in-law did not want to sell his land that had been in his family. There was this thing called eminent domain, and if he did not sell, they were going to take it. So you make the best of a bad situation.
On your question, I really want to stress, please do go to the first session. The historians really helped us understand how through the development of the park that topic was negotiated, how the reservations of use were established. The original, one of the concepts, and Laura and others in the room, Dewey can talk about it, but there was one of the formations of the park actually was a private land whole, the donut and the hole, and that the whole was the private lands until further discussion and negotiation happened. So it wasn't an overnight decision for the ranching community, nor for the rest of the community working towards forming the seashore. So, yeah.
That you were threatened with eminent domain if you didn't sell, so you had to sell.
And again, I want you to really challenge you. There were changes in property taxes that were going up at the time. And also through the negotiation of the seashore and the 3 different enabling legislations. And I know I'm stepping on the panelists, so I can see, I'll get back to them. But just understand that through that, there was a path for these reservations of use and then continuation through special lease permits. So it's worth really going back and hearing what those historians and how they describe that. I don't know what else you guys want to offer on that topic.
Wasn't there development ideas too, David, that it kind of seemed like they were caught between a rock and a hard place. You had development on one side and national park. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. That's just how I understood it.
Well, and that's where I'm referring to this elevation and property tax and things. And then, eventually the county came up with the A60 solution on the private side of the county in terms of how to conserve and protect against development. And then, of course, SMALT came into. So the solutions were different depending on what part of the county you were in for protecting the land against development. And again, that was talked about in that session in great depth and detail with a lot of knowledge.
Well, and, David touched on it too. Originally they had a 25-year, some families longer reservation of use permit. These 5-year shorter leases have just been more in recent years. And I think at the time, 25 years sounds like a really long time. And, I just never really asked my grandfather the question, but I mean, at that stage of life, his kids were in their 30s. He was probably nowhere dreaming that he would have grandchildren that were sitting up at this table tonight still milking cows on the same place. So, I think it's a complicated, like David said, it was took a long time to get to the decision that they made, but
There was also, along with Jolynn, my grandfather, I was only 10 years old when the park bought our land. You had an option, I believe, up to 50 years at the time, and my grandfather took 20 because I remember him saying, there was a lot of unknowns. You didn't know what is this park going to bring to us. We're going to have people wandering all over the place. Heck, we don't want 30 years. We don't want 50 years. Let's try 20. And then also the purchase price, the rent was taken off of your purchase price. So the longer you took of a reservation of possession, the less money you got at that time the deal was made.
So we'll take one last question, and then I'm going to ask you to look at your name tags.
Go ahead. Thank you. As someone who basically has grown up and lived in the city, I feel it's a tremendous, with a longing to have more of a connection to place and to land. It seems like just a tremendous value to have all of you out there, as well as all the other ranching and farming operations that are going on in Marin County. There's a connection there for me that's very meaningful, and I wonder if you have any perspectives about the meaning of what you do, or the value of what you do in the larger sense of how to be a sustainable community or a sustainable society. And if you have any feelings or thoughts about that kind of an idea.
I read a quote once, and I'm sorry I don't remember it exactly. I think the man's name was Timothy Wiskell, and he said, "To deny a nation its right to sustainability will surely ensure its collapse."
Let you think about it as we move to the next. And I'm just going to say, wow, thank you. I think we've learned that the point's a place for the ultimate sandwich generation. So kudos to all of you for juggling those relationships. Maybe even a training ground for statesmen, I don't know, multilingual, multicultural for sure. So with that, if you'll take a minute to look at your name tag, and I think there's a number on it, correct? The back side. And then I'm going to ask 11 key people with blue pieces of paper to stand up. They are members of the MCL board, as well as three 4 folks that have pitched in. These are your small group hosts. And so can you see their numbers, and can you look at the number on the back of your name tag? What I'm going to ask you to do is start to group together.